Hello, I'm Todd Danielson, the Editorial Director of Informed Infrastructure. And today I'm in London at the Bentley Systems Year in Infrastructure Conference. Joining me is Keith Bentley, a company founder and its Chief Technology Officer. You know, Keith, it's really nice to be back at a live event again, isn't it?
Oh.
Thanks for talking with me today.
It's wonderful to be back meeting with real professionals, people who make their living in infrastructure. You know, you just can't get that over Zoom.
Right.
Seems to me.
So you just recently spoke at the keynote and you talked a lot about the new technology coming out. Can you describe in your words what it means to move from file-based to data-centric workflows? Perhaps the differences between MicroStation to iTwin as an example.
Right, so MicroStation was conceived in an era where the vehicle people used to communicate information was the files, and when you use files, they're generally the unit of locking, so you divide the world up into small pieces so that they can be changed independently. That works really well for designing, but if you're trying to convey information to somebody about the big picture, sending a series of files tends to cause disruption. So what you'd like to do is take all that information, combine it together, make it logically cohesive, make it queryable, make it so you can interrogate it. And so that's kind of the iTwin philosophy, is take the information from the files, put it into a single database, put that database accessible everywhere, and that's what our kind of phase 2 of our iTwin platform is about.
Can you describe how the iTwin platform has evolved from the first official version in 2018 to now?
Well, the platform itself is substantially different than it was when we first created it. It is open source, so we've had lots of feedback from people who use it. Generally, the way it's different is it does a lot more. It does the same things that it did at the beginning, but we've gotten input to extend it for different purposes, like, for example, the announcement we made today for IoT devices. You know, if you've got a real live, accurate image or model of some infrastructure, connect it up to live sensors, it makes a lot of sense, and we didn't do that at the beginning of the iTwin platform, but it now does.
Is fundamentally the differences not that much, other than what's being added?
I would say fundamentally it does the same thing better and more. So no, we did not reinvent the iTwin platform over the course of its lifetime. We merely extended it.
Okay, perfect. So what is the importance of iTwin being an open platform to its success and uptake?
Well, I think the success of digital twins in general kind of relies on the information contained within a digital twin has to be accessible everywhere. Has to be clear that the people who create the digital twin own the digital twin. So we thought about, well, how could it become possible to create software that manages information that becomes so critical? And we thought the only way that really is going to work long term is if the software itself is open source. So what that means is people can, use the software, the source code to the software, and to create things without necessarily having to pay a fee to Bentley or anybody else. So I think digital twins and openness are hand in hand. I don't think the success of digital twins will be something that isn't open. So given that, we decided we wanted to make our platform as open as we possibly can, and that's what we've been working on.
Talk a little bit about how more open it can get in the future.
Well, there are aspects of the platform that deal with specific types of data. So you talk about integration with enterprise systems, or you talk about the integration with reality capture. The techniques for doing that sometimes are proprietary and internal. So what we've tried to do is make it so that you can combine with systems that may be closed, maybe not necessarily open, but we create the data in an open. So it's really the interfaces that are open. And one of the things that I believe will happen more so all the time is the software authors of the digital twin solutions will contribute their code back to the community. And we're already seeing some of that with the companies that Greg was talking about this morning. They're making really extensive use of the open source, and they're actually making their own code open source as well. And I think it's good for the community, I think it's good for the users, and I think it's good for the prospect that digital twins can become a real thing over time.
That sounds great. So in the keynote, you said engineers should be able to better reuse rich data from old projects into new projects to further industrialize design and construction. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, a perfect example of that is, most projects today do not start from green fields. At the beginning of Bentley Systems, lots of projects were about creating new stuff. But more so all the time, it's about improving something that already exists, or maybe even demolishing something and replacing it with something. That happens all the time. To do that, you need the context of what was there, what is there, what should it be, what else have I done that looks like that, and there are techniques now, because the information becomes accessible, that you can say, well, find me the closest match that will satisfy this set of problems. Show me that as a background information, maybe copy some of that data in. And so instead of starting with a blank screen, you start with the history of everything you've done, or potentially everything you've done. Now, it's going to take some time before all the information gets into the digital twin so that the next project starts from a digital twin, but that's the way it should work, in my opinion.
How will the iTwin experience help with data acquisition and asset management? Asset maintenance, I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, the iTwins, the concept of the iTwins experience is that there are lots of data sources that are aggregated together inside an iTwin, but they each have their own way of explaining what they mean and how they're created and who's allowed to access them. We tried to make with the iTwin experience some kind of unifying way that you could, for information that is common, you get a common experience. And then you drill down into types of information that is specific to a task or an individual or a project. And so it can be customized. But in general, there are many things that are similar across projects, across disciplines within a project. And we tried to make that as accessible as we can. So web-based experience, web-based is kind of the norm nowadays for presenting information. But sometimes you'll start from a web-based experience, you'll find the information you need, you'll extract some subset of it onto your desktop, you'll work for a time, post it back up into the iTwin experience. Hopefully your user experience, no matter what tool you're using, is pretty cohesive so that you don't end up with these import-export problems that plague the workflows today.
Okay. Do you expect iTwin IoT to be a boon to consultants providing data?
I certainly believe there is a market for people that are experts in dealing with kind of the information conveyed through sensors and control systems that, combined with the engineering expertise, can create a kind of a new market for firms to become experts at being the integrator, systems integrator. And if you are really good at understanding kind of the real-time aspect of a digital twin, I think it's going to be a unique skill. I believe there can be insights drawn from the data provided through IoT sensors that otherwise would not be possible. You can only find those trends by having that data. And so, yes, I do believe there can be some new expertise, new types of expertise that wasn't possible before. I don't know exactly, as Greg observed this morning, we created the technology. You find reasons why it solves problems that we didn't even know exist. One of the examples that was given is vegetation management. Okay, we didn't set out to make a vegetation management system per se, but when you can sense, you have cameras, you have ways of determining where the obstructions are for ingress or egress from a site. Hey, there's a new business. Somebody could be the vegetation management expert, and kind of the technology enables, kind of people to leverage it in various creative ways, and of course, hopefully they turn that into a successful long-term business.
Okay, that sounds great. So you also talked about phase 2 of the i20i model and how it's going to be taking the file-based systems and then kind of getting the I model into it. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, is that another way to kind of get around some of the users who are a bit reluctant to adopt the newer technology?
Yes. So the users of the current iTwin, kind of phase 0 and phase 1 of the iTwin, they've had to deal with the fact that the products that they use to create the information that goes into their digital twins have been somewhat disconnected from the actual digital twin. So there's a conversion process. And it is not an easy conversion process because, we talked about the dark data, the concept that engineering design tools create information in ways that automate the process of creating that data and managing that data, but they don't necessarily take into consideration all of the other purposes that data could be used for. So that conversion, that connection, we call it, from the design tool into the digital twin has been a job of someone outside of the engineering profession. And I think it shouldn't be the way that in steady state, the engineer pushes their data to the digital twin. The engineers should be connected to the digital twin. So that's what we're talking about with phase 2. You could imagine one approach is skip phase 2, go to phase N, whatever that might be long term, and rewrite all the products that create data and make them natively edit digital twins. The problem with that is there's just a ton of existing work processes that are built on top of the current tools. So instead of doing that, what we've decided to do is to add digital twin capabilities to the existing tools. One of the reasons why I believe that is likely to be more successful than the Big Bang theory is people can incrementally start adopting it. So you can decide to use some digital twin. And as you say, today, the people who are using digital twin kind of have to decide that they want to use a digital twin. I think you should be able to decide to use a little bit of a digital twin on, first project, a little bit more on the next project, and before you know it, I think, you will be a digital twin native, as I said this morning. And so that's kind of phase 2 of our iTwin platform.
Okay. Which aspect of the future technology that you're working on now are you most excited about?
Well, so I think there's many areas where the philosophy of a digital twin can be way more valuable than the philosophy of creating models for the purposes of creating construction documentation. So ordinarily today, the process goes, you model, you export into a format like an IFC format or even to a PDF format. And to do that, you kind of have to decide, okay, at what point in time am I going to do that, and what's the output going to look like? Often it is just a series of documents, 2D documents. And I think if we could skip that step, and sometimes I say, look, the handover step should be continuous. You should not pick milestones and hand only at those milestones. There's approval processes, but the incremental connection of the engineering process and the scheduling process and the construction process, tightening those loops, that's been a goal for many generations of software, but it only in the digital twin world becomes, I think, not only possible but natural.
Did you want to talk about how excited you are to be at a live event now that we got a little more time?
So yes, YII has been an annual event for Bentley for many years, and for the last 2 years it's been purely virtual. And while I'm a huge proponent of electronic communications and virtualness, I think that can be just a wonderful extension to our lives, but there's no substitute for sitting in the same room with someone, bumping into someone in the hall, listening to someone give a presentation live, raising your hand. Those kinds of things just kind of don't happen in a virtual event. So I'm way more excited about this year's YI after having missed 2 years, or having 2 virtual years. Mm-hmm. And I just think I wish more of our Bentley colleagues could come and connect, have the same experience I have sitting in the back of the room listening to someone explain how their project worked. You get so much feedback on why things are important that you will not get, I don't think, or at least won't get to the same extent virtually. So live events, I don't like going. I don't like to travel, and I don't like some of the drudgery of going to events. But you couldn't hold me out of this event.
All right, that's good. Well, thanks for talking with us today, Keith. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your event, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Yeah, London is a great place to be too. Mm-hmm. By the way, when you think about infrastructure cities and where the epicenter of innovation goes on, The UK does a wonderful job, and I just think London is the kind of prototype for a lot of other things we wish were happening elsewhere in the world. So we come to London, or have come to London many times, and it's great for infrastructure.